The Cosmic Express by Jack Williamson. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information, or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Read by Jerome Lawson. The Cosmic Express by Jack Williamson. Mr. Eric Stokes Harding tumbled out of the rumpled bed clothing, a striking slender figure in purple striped pajamas. He smiled fondly across to the other of the twin beds, where Nada, his pretty bride, lay quiet beneath light silk covers. With a groan, he stood up and began a series of fantastic bending exercises. But after a few half-hearted moments, he gave it up, and walked through an open door into a small, bright room, its walls covered with bookcases, and also with scientific appliances that would have been strange to the man of 4 or 5 centuries before, when the age of aviation was beginning. Yawning, Mr. Eric Stokes Harding stood before the great open window, staring out. Below him was a wide park-like space, green with emerald lawns and bright with flowering plants. 200 yards across it rose an immense pyramidal building, an artistic structure, gleaming with white marble and bright metal, striped with the verdure of terraced roof gardens, its slender peak rising to help support the gray, steel-ribbed glass roof above. Beyond, the park stretched away in illimitable vistas, broken with the graceful columned buildings that held up the great glass roof. Above the glass, over this New York of 2432 A.D., a freezing blizzard was sweeping. But small concern was that to the lightly clad man at the window, who was inhaling deeply the fragrant air from the plants below, air kept, winter and summer, exactly at 20 degrees Celsius. With another yawn, Mr. Eric Stokes Harding turned back to the room, which was bright with the rich golden light that poured in from the suspended globes of the cold auto light that illuminated the snow-covered city. With a distasteful grimace, he seated himself before a broad, paper-littered desk, sat a few minutes leaning back, with his hands clasped behind his head. At last he straightened reluctantly, slid a small typewriter out of its drawer, and began pecking at it impatiently. For Mr. Eric Stokes Harding was an author. There was a whole shelf of his books on the wall, in bright jackets, red and blue and green, that brought a thrill of pleasure to the young novelist's heart when he looked up from his clattering machine. He wrote thrilling action romances, as his enthusiastic publishers and television directors said, of ages past, when men were men. Red-blooded heroes responding vigorously to the stirring passions of primordial life. He was impartial as to the source of his thrills, provided they were distant enough from modern civilization. His hero was likely to be an ape-man roaring through the jungle, with a bloody rock in one hand and a beautiful girl in the other. Or a cowboy, hard riding, hard shooting, the vanishing hero of the ancient ranches. Or a man marooned with a lovely woman on a desert South Sea island. His heroes were invariably strong, fearless, resourceful fellows who could handle a club on equal terms with a caveman, or call science to aid them in defending a beautiful mate from the terrors of a desolate wilderness. And 100 million read Eric's novels, and watched the dramatization of them on the television screens. They thrilled at the simple, romantic lives his heroes led, paid him handsome royalties, and subconsciously shared his opinion that civilization had taken all the best from the life of man. Eric had settled down to the artistic satisfaction of describing the sensuous delight of his hero in the roasted marrow bones of a dead mammoth, when the pretty woman in the other room stirred, and presently came tripping into the study, gay and vivacious, and, as her husband of a few months most justly thought, altogether beautiful in a bright silk dressing-gown. Recklessly, he slammed the machine back into its place, and resolved to forget that his next red-blooded action thriller was due in the publisher's office at the end of the month. He sprang up to kiss his wife, held her embraced for a long, happy moment, and then they went hand in hand to the side of the room and punched a series of buttons on a panel. A simple way of ordering breakfast sent up the automatic shaft from the kitchens below. Nada Stokes Harding was also an author. She wrote poems, back-to-nature stuff. Simple lyrics of the sea, of sunsets, of bird songs, of bright flowers and warm winds, of thrilling communion with nature and growing things. Men read her poems and called her a genius. Even though the world had grown up into a city, the birds were extinct, there were no wild flowers, and no one had time to bother about sunsets.
"Eric, darling," she said, "isn't it terrible to be cooped up here in this little flat, Far away from the things we both love?
Yes, dear. Civilization has ruined the world. If we could have only lived 1,000 years ago, when life was simple and natural, when men hunted and killed their meat, instead of drinking synthetic stuff, when men still had the joys of conflict, instead of living under glass, like hothouse flowers.
If only we could go somewhere.
There isn't anywhere to go. I write about the West, Africa, South Sea Islands, but they were all filled up 200 years ago. Pleasure resorts, sanatoriums, cities, factories.
If only we lived on Venus. I was listening to a lecture on the television last night. The speaker said that the planet Venus is younger than the Earth, that it has not cooled so much. It has a thick, cloudy atmosphere and low, rainy forests. There's simple, elemental life there, like Earth had before civilization ruined it.
Yes, Kinsley, with his new infrared ray telescope that penetrates the cloud layers of the planet, proved that Venus rotates in about the same period as Earth, and it must be much like Earth was 1,000,000 years ago.
Eric, I wonder if we could go there. It would be so thrilling to begin life like the characters in your stories, to get away from this hateful civilization and live natural lives. Maybe a rocket.
The young author's eyes were glowing. He skipped across the floor, seized Nada, kissed her ecstatically. Splendid! Think of hunting in the virgin forest, and bringing the game home to you. But I'm afraid there's no way. Wait. The Cosmic Express!
The Cosmic Express?
A new invention. Just perfected a few weeks ago, I understand. By Ludwig van der Waals, the German physicist.
I've quit bothering about science. It's ruined nature. Filled the world with silly, artificial people doing silly, artificial things.
But this is quite remarkable, dear. A new way to travel. By ether.
By ether?
Yes. You know, of course, that energy and matter are interchangeable terms. Both are simply etheric vibration, of different sorts.
Of course, that's elementary.
She smiled proudly.
I can give you examples even of the change. The disintegration of the radium atom, making helium and lead and energy. And Millikan's old proof that his cosmic ray is generated when particles of electricity are united to form an atom.
Fine. I thought you said you weren't a scientist. He glowed with pride. But the method, in the new Cosmic Express, is simply to convert the matter to be carried into power, send it out as a radiant beam, and focus the beam to convert it back into atoms at the destination.
But the amount of energy must be terrific.
It is. You know short waves carry more energy than long ones. The express ray is an electromagnetic vibration of frequency far higher than even of the cosmic ray, and correspondingly more powerful and more penetrating. The girl frowned, running slim fingers through golden brown hair.
But I don't see how they get any recognizable object, not even how they get the radiation turned back into matter.
The beam is focused, just like the light that passes through a camera lens. The photographic lens, using light rays, picks up a picture and reproduces it again on the plate, just the same as the express ray picks up an object and sets it down on the other side of the world. An analogy from television might help. You know that by means of the scanning disc, the picture is transformed into mere rapid fluctuations in the brightness of a beam of light. In a parallel manner, the focal plane of the express ray moves slowly through the object, progressively, dissolving layers of the thickness of a single atom, which are accurately reproduced at the other focus of the instrument, which might be in Venus. But the analogy of the lens is the better of the two, for no receiving instrument is required, as in television. The object is built up of an infinite series of plane layers, at the focus of the ray, no matter where that may be. Such a thing would be impossible with radio apparatus, because even with the best beam transmission, all but a tiny fraction of the power is lost, and power is required to rebuild the atoms. Do you understand, dear?
Not altogether, but I should worry. Here comes breakfast. Let me butter your toast.
A bell had rung on the shaft. She ran to it, and returned with a great silver tray, laden with dainty dishes, which she set on a little side table. They sat down opposite each other and ate, getting as much satisfaction from contemplation of each other's faces as from the excellent food. When they had finished, she carried the tray to the shaft, slid it in a slot, and touched a button, thus disposing of the culinary cares of the morning. She ran back to Eric, who was once more staring distastefully at his typewriter.
Oh, darling, I'm thrilled to death about the Cosmic Express.